I work for the National Association of UK Community Foundations. And what I'm going to do in the next 20 minutes is give you a quick overview of our sector and then focus in on the three principal roles that community foundations play in the UK. The first, as Bernardina has already spoken about, the role to develop and encourage giving and philanthropy. The second role in our role in grant making and in developing community knowledge and impact. And the third is the leadership role of community foundations in the UK. And then I'll finish with an idea really about the current situation that we are in and where we think some of the UK developments are going to go. So, okay. What we have here on the right-hand side is where we were in 1998. We had a number of community foundations, those are the ones in blue, that were established, some of them in the early 1990s. And they were really developing quite fast and quite well. The red areas that are coloured in are those areas that were thinking about having a community foundation, had started some grant making, but really hadn't developed or deepened their donor work. And the yellow areas were those areas that were really coming online, had expressed an interest. And actually what this map shows is that it took us quite a long time. It took us about 15 years to actually develop the network in the UK to this point. You can see from all the different logos that are on the left-hand side, all the different community foundations, that their branding all looks very different. Some of our members really focused in on the grant-making role, others focused in on the philanthropy role. But over time, and I don't know, this was due, no, it was due, over time, that map on the right-hand side is now completely covered in blue. It means that we now have 100% coverage of the UK by community foundations. Most of them are county-based, Berkshire, Cornwall, Yorkshire and so forth. Some of them are country-based. We have one community foundation for Scotland, one for Wales and one for Northern Ireland. And the population base that they cover is typically 500,000 to 1.5 million in terms of population. It means that what we have as a network, if you think of that map again as being entirely covered by community foundations, is we have real reach and depth into our communities. There's a real sense of embeddedness by community foundations in the UK now after 25 years. We have 350 professional staff working with donors, working in the community across the UK. We have 750 trustees, board members. And yes, Bernardina is right, most of them are donors to their community foundation. And we have another 2,000 people. These are people from the community living on housing estates, living in rural areas, working in the business world, from a whole variety of different sectors, actually advising on grant panels, bringing their knowledge, bringing their expertise to ensure that the grant making really has a good impact. So as a network, we represent a body of over 3,000 people ready to help a whole range of different donors and funders. And these can be government bodies. We handle quite a lot of government money. We have the lottery. The lottery funds a lot of charitable and voluntary sector activity. You call it non-profit activity. And equally companies and firms. And what is so interesting about our network, when you look at all those logos on the left-hand side, you can see the individual characters that they have. But there has been a groundswell, a sort of a pressure from the members to develop quality standards. And so we now have 20 standards, our members are independently checked. And what is so interesting is that our regulator, the Charity Commission for England and Wales, has said, we think it's a great idea that there are standards in terms of delivery, in terms of transparency, in terms of governance, in terms of donor work.
To say something about what the Charity Commission
Yes, the Charity Commission is our regulator for non-profits in the UK. It's funded by government, but it is independent of government, and it's pretty unique in the world. But when you register as a non-profit, you have to register with the Charity Commission to get tax benefits if you want to receive a donation tax efficiently.
Simile all'Agenzia per le Onlus, ma molto più pregnante, molto più forte, direi anche con molta maggiore reputazione.
It means that we have a body of professional quality organizations that is very attractive to national donors, not just local ones. And it means that there is, when we take on a big contract, for example, we had over £250 million from the British government to look at issues around child poverty. It means that our members are actively working quite closely together to deliver that money into those local communities. So if we look at our first role, that was a sort of big overview of community foundations in the UK. If we look at the philanthropy role that we're playing, on the left-hand side you can see an image of Henry Smith, and he was born, I think, in 1628. He was a merchant. He owned a very nice piece of London property. And he left a foundation when he died, which continues to this day, the Henry Smith Charity. There are lots of people who apply to it for funding, and it tries to tackle issues around poverty and education and also the arts. And what is so interesting is that even though we have this very sort of fertile ground for community foundations, this tradition of people giving, of establishing foundations that have gone throughout the centuries, of course, and you may have the same thing happen here in Italy, the arrival of the welfare state in a post-war period meant that the word philanthropy became synonymous with something that was patriarchal, top-down, old-fashioned, very Victorian. And even in the year 2000, we worked with a researcher called Dr. Beth Rees. She tracked the mentions of philanthropy and giving in the press in the year 2000 and found it virtually didn't appear anywhere. But since then, we've seen a huge change in public perception around philanthropy. The word is coming back into favour again. We have television programmes about people who go into communities and suddenly reveal themselves to be secret millionaires and secret donors to projects. We're now seeing the acceptance of the word philanthropy again, and what is so interesting is in that same time period of 10 to 15 years, the basis of wealth has changed in the UK. 15 years ago, it was 75% old money and 25% new money. And that has reversed. The wealth base is now 75% new money and 25% old money. Now it's 75% new money and 25% old money. We have seen in the dot-com era a generation of new wealth being created, and for me it's represented by the gentleman on the right-hand side. This is the new philanthropist. They're new to giving, their variations may vary, but they want a personal experience. They want to make a difference, to have an impact. They want to network with other donors. They want to develop partnerships. They want to give in their lifetime. They don't just want to leave a legacy. And they want to give time and skill as well as money. And for us, that means that we've had to respond as community foundations in some quite creative ways to engage them. It means that we take donors on site visits. We help network other donors together. We have to provide a very high-touch, very personal service. And we have to be able to provide quality advice, really good quality advice. So that's the challenge that we have in the network. We're seeing more donor circles form. We're seeing more donor education events, more philanthropy forums, more philanthropy debates on the radio, all of these sorts of things. It means that in terms of our growth, if we look at where we started, graph on the left-hand side represents, over the last 20 so years, our grant making and our endowment. The yellow columns represent our endowment. Collectively, we hold about £220 million. I'm not going to do the euro exchange. £220 million is what we
Dividete per 1,3 più o meno.
Grazie. And then you can see in the purple column really our grant making, how it's gone up. And you can see the dips in the stock market and all sorts of things, but generally it's an upward trend.